Okay, guys. So the next part is called dummy activities. Right? And so just think of a dummy activity as an extension of a path, right? So an extension of a letter. So let's have a look at this, right? So activity F, the immediate predecessor is nothing. Activity G, immediate predecessor is nothing. Activity H, it's F, yep. Activity I is H and G. Well, that's not in the graph, but let's keep going. Right. And then activity J is just activity G. Right. So what we want to do, and if you observe this, activity I comes from both H and G, but J only comes from G. Right. So if we got rid of this and we just drew G in here, and we had activity J coming out of here as well, right? The immediate predecessor of J would be both H and G, right? But that's not what this table says. So in order to facilitate that, all we can do is we can just draw a dotted line over here, right? And say G dummy, right? For the dummy activity for this, right? And so, like I said, we just extend G to over here. Right? Let's have a look at this one. So we have activity A coming from nothing, B coming from A, C coming from A, D coming from B, yep. And then E coming from B and C, right? So all we're going to do is draw an extension and then B, right, dummy. Dum. Okay. Next one, activity A, nothing, B, nothing, C, A, and B, right? Dotted line up here. That's going to be our dummy activity, right? From D, it's just B, and then so forth, right? Have a look at these ones. So A, nothing, B, nothing, C comes from A, good. D comes from both A and B, right? So let's just draw these in, right? Easy. Last one, right? Could, good. Draw a line here. Connecting into C, and then another line here. A and B connect into D. Perfect. This one's cool. And then E comes from D. Perfect. And then F comes from C and E. Right? Easy. Right. So that's all we have to do for dummies. Right. And so if you're drawing them out now, so I've got stuff like this. Let's have a look at this one. Right. Like we're drawing normal critical paths. Start P and Q. Right, activity R comes from P. Activity S comes from Q. Activity T comes from Q. Right. I'm going to leave this out for now. So I'm just scanning ahead, right? And I'm seeing R and S connect together like that. So S, and then we'll put T here. Right, this is just scanning ahead, right? The reason I can do this is because I've done so many of these, right? And I've just gotten used to it. And so that's what I recommend you guys do as well. So T comes from Q, U comes from R and S, right? And then V comes from R, S, and T, right? So we know R and S both connect into here, right? We can just draw a dummy line to T, right? Dummy, right? And because both of these connect into this, right, this dummy will carry both R and S, right? Right, and that connects into V, right? And this is the end, right? We can do one more. So activity A, B comes from the start. Make sure you always draw arrows, right? And then activity C, activity D, right? D and C both connect together. However, activity F only comes from C. So let me draw this down here. Right, and we draw a dummy across here to facilitate these ones. This connects into E. Right, from these come E and F, or E and F come G. Right, and this is the end. Right, so that's constructing network diagrams, including dummies. A side note that I want you to remember is that you should always use dummies as a last resort. Right? Most networks in the HSD can be drawn without a dummy, right? And it'll usually say draw a dummy activity or something like that. So when you're doing them, try to do it without drawing a dummy, right? And see how you go. But for specifically questions on dummy, right? Obviously you're going to use one. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the discussion page.